President Joe Biden made his first visit to the U.S. Mexico border as president on Sunday. Amid controversy and backlash over the administration's distribution of resources to the southern border, the visit occurred just days after he unveiled a new, restrictive policy that would essentially expand an immigration program known as Title 42 while campaigning on a promise to stop the program. Title 42 was enacted to address public health and social welfare, and it empowers the government to take emergency action in a variety of ways, including stopping the introduction of communicable diseases. Even though the code has been in place for a long time, the administration of the then-President Donald Trump started using it heavily in March 2020 to control border crossings under the guise of stricter COVID-19 regulation. Since 2020, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has deported over 2 million migrants along the southern border under Title 42. This is due, in part, to recidivism. Persons attempting to cross the border illegally are apprehended and returned before attempting again. According to Cardinal Brown, recidivism rates are higher than they have been in many decades, and we do feel that Title 42 was one of the reasons why we saw people attempting several times, which raised the number of attempts. Bypassing the asylum process and immediately returning migrants to Mexico without due process did not deter them from attempting to cross or recross the U.S. Mexico border in many cases, in part because it pushed people back out of the country without any consequence to future immigration application. The enormous volume of migrants crossing the southern border has also had an impact on how border officers do their duties, prompting advocates and local communities to emphasize a lack of resources there. Border agents want a policy from Washington that they believe will really address the work that they have been challenged to do, which is essentially taking people who are seeking asylum and having to care for them, take them in, deal with humanitarian issues, and families and kids in facilities that are not structured for that. Cardinal Brown said, after a number of states filed a lawsuit and the Supreme Court heard it, the Biden administration's initial attempts to stop the use of Title 42 at the border in 2022 were unsuccessful. The Supreme Court agreed to hear the case but ordered the government to maintain Title 42 in the meantime.
The United States, Panama, and Colombia intend to halt migration through the Darien Gap. Haitian migrants wade through a river as they cross the Darien Gap from Colombia into Panama, aiming to reach the United States. The United States, Panama, and Colombia announced Tuesday the commencement of a 60-day effort to curb illegal migration through the perilous Darien Gap, where the flow of migrants has increased this year. Haitian migrants wade through a river as they crossed the Darien Gap from Colombia into Panama, aiming to reach the United States. The United States, Panama, and Colombia announced Tuesday, April 11, 2023, the commencement of a 60-day effort to curb illegal migration through the perilous Darien Gap, where the flow of migrants has increased this year. The United States, Panama, and Colombia announced on Tuesday a 60-day campaign to curb illegal migration through the perilous Darien Gap, where the flow of migrants has increased this year. The joint statement did not provide details on how the countries plan to stem the flow of migrants through the dense, lawless forest, which reached roughly 90,000 in just the first 3 months of this year. The ambitious statement comes as the Biden administration warily anticipates the impending expiration of a pandemic-related rule on May 11, which has suspended many people's rights to seek refuge. Without that deterrent at the border, there is a danger that migrant arrivals would become unmanageable once more. The countries would also employ new lawful and flexible pathways for tens of thousands of migrants and refugees as an alternative to irregular migration, according to the joint statement, but no details were provided. The third component of the strategy is investment to eliminate poverty and generate jobs in Colombian and Panamanian border areas, allegedly so that fewer people work as smugglers. Recognizing our shared interest and responsibility to prevent the risk to human life, disrupt transnational criminal organizations, and preserve the vital rainforest, the governments of Panama, Colombia, and the United States intend to carry out a 2-month coordinated campaign to address the serious humanitarian situation in the Darien, according to the statement. On Tuesday, U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas met with Panamanian and Colombian foreign ministers in Panama. According to Panama's authorities, around 87,000 migrants, largely from Venezuela, Haiti, and Ecuador, traversed the Darien Gap in the first 3 months of the year. This was an increase from approximately 14,000 migrants over the same period the previous year. With approximately 250,000 migrants utilizing the Darien route last year, it set a record. Venezuelans, who made up about 60% of all migrants entering the country last year, were primarily responsible for this spike. In October, the Biden administration replied by denying Venezuelans the right to seek refuge at the border under the pandemic-related provision known as Title 42. Instead, the U.S. administration stated it would welcome up to 24,000 Venezuelans who had already applied and been pre-approved through a government online application at U.S. airports. Earlier this year, the initiative was expanded to Nicaragua, Haiti, and Cuba. With Title 42 scheduled to expire next month, the United States is eyeing the Darien Gap as a natural choke point to halt extracontinental migration. According to Michael Lee Weintraub, a professor at Columbia's University of the Andes School of Government, with Biden under pressure from conservatives to address immigration ahead of next year's presidential election, his administration is looking for ways to discourage irregular migration while making legal migration easier. However, he doubted that Colombia's security forces could have a significant impact on migrant smuggling because the country's armed groups profit from it and are very sophisticated. The Darien Gap is one of the most treacherous parts of the long journey to the United States borders. Migrants and international human rights organizations have reported sexual assaults, robberies, and killings in the distant bush. This is in addition to the natural hazards of venomous snakes and raging rivers. The Panamanian government and humanitarian organizations shuttle migrants across Panama to near the border with Costa Rica to continue their journey. Watch and subscribe to News Today Reviews on YouTube.